Hello and welcome to Revlog, where the still vacationing Chris is complaining via social media about being called Christ,
Right.
not Chris. And where
What a
for,
burden he bears. Yes.
and where for Aaron it's always VBS. It's always
Every
VBS.
day is VBS.
Yes, absolutely. VBS vibes.
Yes. And
right here.
how are you, Brian?
I'm hot and sweaty
yeah.
right
Well,
now.
welcome back. It's as if we'd never left. Really. Here we are again.
That's
and
right.
So we're looking at which commandment this week?
We are looking at commandment number 5.
Number 5.
Let the record show.
Excellent.
Number 5.
So honor.
Halfway through.
That's right.
Halfway through morality.
Do you think Moses gave like a bargain for obeying 1 through 5? No. Okay, so honor your father and mother. And
Yes.
and as Ephesians will tell us, Ephesians 6, this is the promise that comes, or this is the commandment that comes with the promise.
That's right. The only command it says, I guess. That
And
comes
that's
with the
interesting that it says that, because really the first couple have promises, but it's more like if you don't keep this, this is what's going to happen to you.
Exactly.
But this is the first one that has one that's an affirmative, and it, by obeying this, that you'll be honored as well as honoring your parents.
Yes.
So that's
It's a positive promise, not a negative promise.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what I looked at before I came here today. Was I looked at Ephesians chapter 6, because it specifically references Exodus 20, and if you back up to Ephesians 5, that's where it's talking about husbands and wives and how they should interact with one another. And Paul does a really interesting thing there, because he talks about Christ being the head of the church, and he talks about how Christ loves the church and gave his life up for her, and then he continues on and says, "Okay, now kids, you need to remember that this has been a part of it all along. You need to honor your parents."
By the way, is that the
You kids,
the
Paul's-
modern translation?
modern-
And now kids.
Yeah. But if we're thinking of Christ and the church, and then how do we honor Christ? How do we honor the church in the way it is intended? And then do we have that same respect for our parents? Because I think that's what Paul is trying to set, that with husbands and wives, you need to think of each other that way.
Yes.
But that through the whole family, we need to be considering what honor means.
Wow, that is so good, Aaron, because that order in the household flows directly from the character of Christ.
That's right.
To expand upon that, it seems that because of the first and second portions of this command, the commandment and then the promise, that there's a connection between honoring the ones who rear and nurture you in the family hierarchy on the one hand, and then societal order for succeeding generations on the other hand, in both individual families and in the larger community, the larger entire societies. And so it would seem that there's a pattern it's talking, or it's pointing to the truth that there's a pattern of disdain, of just completely minimizing and rejecting preceding generations fractures the progression of societal learning.
Yeah.
In other words, if we interrupt that flow of accumulated knowledge and wisdom, we will pay the price down the line.
Yes.
We will not have what it takes to build good societies, and then we won't be long for this land.
That's right. That's so well said, Brian.
Well,
and you look at
you.
cultures and societies that really do, where taking care of the elderly is just a part of an extension of growing up. Is there will be a day where I care for you as my parent, and it's just expected. And I think you see something in those cultures that speaks to that generational wisdom and how to run a society, how to love one another, how to care for one another. So I think that's...
Well, this brings up a question of how we deal with issues of aging and what our posture is towards older and younger generations, and of course not to get too far into the weeds here, Aaron, but we've got questions of euthanasia and so forth that are that seem to be on the horizon right now, but for some societies, it's sort of becoming commonly acknowledged
Yeah.
that suffering and old age and so forth is associated with loneliness and a diminished capacity to live as a full person.
Wow. We have to think about these things.
I think we do.
Well, and not to be pithy here, but honestly, when you look at a product and you look on the back and it has warning labels like "Don't eat a Tide Pod," it exists because why?
Because we haven't listened to our parents.
Because somebody ate a Tide Pod somewhere, and they decided that, well, it's better be a good idea that we write this on there. So you look at these commandments and you wonder if this is God going, our propensity is to not do this. And so not only am I going to tell you this is what you should do, but when you do it, this will bear fruit that will help you and your children and your children's children.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's just this continuing thing. Any questions that arise
Well,
here?
that's it. That's it. Is just wondering the context of the Israelites at that point. Had they not done a good job of that? Was God? So I'm asking you a question that may not be able to be answered, but you tend to wonder. We tend to give rules that we need help with, and this might have been one. And so
that's exactly right. One final question that I have is: does the church, does the evangelical church, especially because that's what we're a part of here, does the church teach us to long to be cool or to long to grow old? I wonder about that.
That's a great question.
Well, thanks for joining us. Delve into these questions, wonder about these things, because that's inviting one another and the Lord to come in and help us learn.
Call
Thanks,
your mom
everybody.
and dad today. Tell them you love them.
That's a great suggestion.